So I think that will do it. I think we will be rolling here. So, I had this idea from the last show, the Mailbag Show, and we had talked about Elvis playing the Burt Reynolds part in Smokey and the Bandit.
Right.
And then him, instead of the Trans Am, him driving the Stutz Blackhawk. And then after we finished recording, I was like, would be really cool, instead of the Firebird, it was actually like a black and silver hawk on the hood. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, that I just wanted to share that with you because we didn't talk about it, and I was like, oh man, that would have been great if it made the show. But now it's in this one, so it's like an addendum to the last show.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, there you go. Welcome back. This is Suspicious Minds. I am Burl.
And I'm Wade.
All right. And today we are talking Loving You.
Not just a song, but also the title of Elvis's second film.
Yeah, his second film, but his first color film.
Right.
Yep.
First color film. Also a film that is in a great long line tradition of films such as Purple Rain and 8 Mile. It's like thinly veiled autobiographical films about how a popular musician got their start that are actually complete bullshit. But, there's like this thin veneer of like, oh, this is how they got their start. But
yeah, exactly.
But not really at all.
Right, exactly. Because Elvis in this plays a truck driver named Deke Rivers. So I guess we can just give the quick recap or the quick telling of what goes on in the movie. And I'll kind of start it off, and I might hand it off to you a little bit during this.
Sure.
But he plays Deke Rivers, who's a truck driver, and he has this talent for singing a song. Mm-hmm. And he is delivering booze to, what is it, like a county fair or some sort of...
like a political rally.
Right. So he's delivering that, and then this agent, Glenda Markle, who's played by Lizbeth Scott, she finds out that he can sing because of his coworker. She gets him to get up on stage, and she sees something, especially with the females in the crowd, and she's like, this guy has got it. He's got something. And so she talks to her ex-paramour, I guess. The band leader is Tex Warner, and it's Texas Rough Ridin' Ramblers. And so they decide to bring him on as a featured performer with them. And that kind of starts this whole snowball effect of just them getting more press and bigger shows. And then there's some love interests that happen in there. One is sort of with the Elizabeth Scott character, the older agent, Glenda Markle, and then also with Susan, who's another singer for the show, and who's a little bit more of a sweetheart. She's a farm girl, and I think he feels like he could talk to her and everything. And then just the uproar of people.
There's a lot of people that just don't tolerate Deke Rivers' smoldering sexuality.
So he's just a little too sexualized for the older folk, the older generation, which obviously you can say Elvis went through the exact same thing in his actual life and his actual career. And I think they just mirror these things, and it's about him kind of coming to terms with that and deciding what to do next. And like that's basically, in a nutshell, the movie.
Well, I feel like this is the first real Elvis movie. Well, obviously, since he's the unquestioned star of the film and not like a supporting player like he was in Love Me Tender, a movie's about him. But we see a lot of things for the first time in this movie. Elvis just busting out into song, like in the middle of doing stuff. And he's like, I'm just going to start singing. And it's mostly explained away that, they are musical performances, but not always. Like we can get to it later, but, the prelude to the fight scene in the diner, he's just kind of like eating dinner and somebody goads him into singing a song in a very aggressive, confrontational sort of way. And it's like, oh yeah. And then just this person in the middle of the room is just like singing a song and everyone's dancing around, just musical shit.
Right. Because the whole movie is basically, it's a retelling of how he became famous, sort of a thinly veiled idea of that. But really what they're trying to do is just sell records. So it's just a bunch of Elvis songs and reasons to get Elvis singing. and get him in however many theaters this was in, let's say 3,500 theaters instead of one theater a night, you know? And it works to that degree. And there are some great moments in this movie, some really memorable scenes. You just kind of brought up the scene in the diner. And of course, that teddy bear with the outfit on is very memorable. And several other pieces of the movie are really good. There are a couple songs I think are kind of weak, but that's okay. And the song Loving You, I don't think it's the first slow ballad he did. Obviously, Love Me Tender is one.
Sure.
But they kind of took a page out of that book and they're like, well, people love these, so let's do another one. Any other things that really stuck out with you, Wade, that you liked about it?
Well, you know, just in the way that it's like a real Elvis film, there's like this kind of stylized opening credit sequence with like a jazzy version of the theme song. And unlike Love Me Tender, where we don't get to see Elvis for like 22 minutes or something, it's just, it seems like it takes forever for Elvis to finally show up. In this movie, we do the opening credits, there's a short scene, Elvis appears on screen at the 5-minute mark, you know, for the first time.
Yeah, in a hot rod.
In a hot rod, no less.
Yeah.
And Elvis is on stage singing a song at the 7-minute and 30
7 minutes
mark.
in, he is singing on stage.
Right. So this movie doesn't waste any time. It's like a porno. It's like, you know, he wanders, you know, into the scene and then he does what he does best. Very unnerving element of him during his first performance. Elvis actually looks at the camera.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. But I want to say that they kept that in intentionally. Like, I think the idea being that if it was 1957 and you were in that movie theater and Elvis is staring right at you during that, I think they might have asked him to do it. I don't think it was something that was by accident. They could have easily recut that. They could have easily reshot it. So I think they wanted that one moment where like he locks eyes with the entire audience and just like melts people in their seats.
Yeah, it's wild. It totally takes you out of the movie, but I think that's a reasonable explanation for why it's in there. But it's just something you're not used to seeing in like a regular movie. Just like somebody just like looking directly at the camera. That's interesting. Also, I don't know, man. It's definitely Elvis movie world. This is like the first appearance of like weird things that happen in only Elvis movies that the movie tries to pass off as like totally normal. Just the idea that this band would hire Elvis to travel with them from town to town and pretend to be a local boy who wants to go up and try singing for the first time at every town they go to.
Right.
It's like, why would you do that?
I don't know. I think it kind of harkens back to that first scene where they're having that political rally and it's for a guy who sells some terrific tonic kind of thing, like that kind of thing, like the carnival barker, the snake oil salesman.
Yeah, literally like snake oil salesman.
Yeah, so literally that, where they're kind of taking I don't know, I know that some of these ideas kind of came from people in Elvis's life, so maybe a little bit of Colonel Tom Parker. The Colonel might be a little bit of the reasoning that they're doing this. Like, it's the trick. Like, hey, it's this local boy, so you're going to lend him your ear for a little bit longer kind of thing. But, yeah, I don't know. It does seem odd that you would just have him as a featured person. Like, hey, here's this young man. We saw him a couple towns over, and we thought he sounded really good, and we brought him along with us. So he's going to sing this next song for you. That also would play. But, yeah, whatever. If that's what they had to do. And they kind of cut that short. Like, they only do that for a short period of time, it seems.
Sure.
And
Though,
then
there is, like, while this is going on, you know, Burl, what I really love is montages in my films.
Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah.
And so I could watch that shit all night, you know, snippets of songs, shots of like 2-lane highways with road signs kind of superimposed over it, like passing by, like, you know, Glitter Gulch, population 730, you know.
Right.
You know, crap like that. I could watch that all night.
Yeah, and also, once again, I think it's sort of the same thing with Love Me Tender, where they had that scene with the ghostly Elvis over the end. Like, they have Elvis superimposed over the highway. It's sort of a happier version of that. Like, oh, let's try this again, because that seemed to work. And it gets him on screen more to do a song with really just some exposition going on that, well, they're going a lot of places. It's like, how do we show that? Okay, let's do this.
Right.
But yeah, it's great. It's a fun montage.
Right. It never doesn't work on screen. I love that kind of crap. So when Elvis officially joins the band, they celebrate the occasion by gifting him with a guitar that's very strongly associated with Elvis, the Gibson J200.
Yeah, it's a really nice guitar.
It is, the big mustache bridge, kind of crazy pickguard, just enormous jumbo body. Like if you kind of conjure up an image of 50s Elvis in your head, he's playing this guitar. I would love to have one of those. Those things are so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he started off with like a Martin that had that leather wrap around the outside of it to protect it. And then after this, I think he played those quite a bit going forward. So we got a couple different versions of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well into the 70s, he was still playing versions of the Gibson J200.
In my mind, like, what an expensive guitar, because it's kind of a top-of-the-line guitar for them. It's up there, It's not
Definitely
the most expensive. But for them to then gift him that, and then when you see what everybody else is playing, which is by no means bad, but the guy whose guitar he was playing, it's not as nice as the J200. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't a J200.
Well, Deke Rivers was their golden boy. They had to keep him happy.
Yeah, they buy him some crazy outfits. That's for sure.
Oh, and speaking of outfits, having my notes here that Elvis wears 100% denim up until the 23-minute mark where he just switches to like Elvis clothes as we know it, like satiny pants and silky shirts and whatnot.
Right.
But,
the neckerchiefs, not so much, but
sure.
Like, although he kind of brought those back in the late 60s. Like a different version of it, like kind of like a tie. He would wear it, but not tied to the side like that, but wear it sort of like a tie. I remember like he did that a little bit.
And, we know that Elvis hates denim, but what do you think of Elvis and, the Canadian tuxedo, the jean jacket and jeans? I think he looks good in that stuff.
He looks fine. Yeah, I mean, it's what's great about it is it ages well, right? So you could wear that in 1957, you wear that in 1967, maybe 1977, the flair would be in there a little bit, but it kind of works for all those years, right now, like if you put on that exact outfit and walk down the street, it would be a little ridiculous because it's like all denim, but definitely the jacket and the jeans together combo still works. Yeah, it's fine.
And Elvis just hated to wear that stuff.
Absolutely. I'm sure he's just like, are you kidding me? And like, no, Elvis, we know what's what. Well, I mean, the costumes, it's Edith Head. So she's like, she knew what she was doing.
Sure, absolutely.
So there's some kind of cool stuff like with the costumes and then like getting him into what Elvis looked like at that time. It all kind of works. It's how he was. Obviously, he got out of the denim. Gosh, what age would he have been? Like several years before that, because he was just turned 22, right? When they started doing this? Right.
Yes, that is correct.
So probably, 4 or 5 years beforehand, he was probably cast denim aside. And he was like, no more of that. Actually, probably a little bit before that, probably by high school.
Right. That's what poor people wear. Something that stuck out to me, there's a scene, it's right after they gift Elvis the guitar. They're kind of like hanging around in a parking lot. And, Elvis is like thrilled that he just got this new Gibson. And the scene ends with Tex saying, okay, Ramblers, let's get to rambling.
I had that in my notes too. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Which, if you're guys of a certain age, and pretty much all guys is what we're talking about, you would instantly recognize that is a line of dialogue also from Reservoir Dogs.
Yep, Quentin Tarantino stole it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, stole it. Since it's in a Tarantino movie, I assumed he stole it from someone. I just never knew exactly where that came from. And you hear it in Loving You, it's like, God, there it is. God damn it.
Yep. It's a good line.
Yeah, it's catchy.
Works in both movies.
It does. How do we feel about the female lead of this film, Lizbeth Scott, as Glenda Markle?
I like her. She's been in a bunch of film noir movies, back in the 40s. She kind of had that sort of Lauren Bacall look.
Right.
She's kind of that kind of sultry, kind of smoky voiced. She's a little bit older than Elvis in this, but that works for the character.
Right.
But no, I like her. She's a little, how do I want to say it? She kind of has that almost a mid-Atlantic sort of thing that she's doing with her voice every once in a while that I find just a touch annoying. Yeah. But I think that just comes from the era of film that she was doing. But I like her. I totally buy her as that character at that age. I mean, it totally works that she would be, if she was like 20, you'd be like, what is going on here? This doesn't make any sense.
Do you know how old she was when they started filming?
Oh, God, hold on. Let's see. I'll say like 36.
34.
Okay, I'm not far off.
Yeah.
She looks a little older than 34 to me there.
She does. And, I would chalk that up to it being like 1957. I know 34-year-old women and they just seem like young girls to me still. It's just a different time today. 34 in 1957. She is bringing like this real appealing, like grown woman energy to this movie. Though her character, she's very confident. She's like very headstrong. She seems to, I think, overestimate her abilities at the job that she's doing. She's like, if I didn't hang around with you, Tex, I could go anywhere else I want and write my own ticket. But like her promotional ideas to make Deke Rivers a phenomenon, very strange.
Right. It's the getting the old women at a concert to say they don't like them to cause a commotion. And the other thing is, let's pretend there's a rich oil woman who won't give her name. Deke Rivers reminds her of her son, so she buys him a car.
Right. But in reality, it's Tex's life insurance policy that she convinces him to cash in to buy this car. And Elvis isn't in on the plan. Sorry, Deke Rivers is not in on the plan.
Yeah.
So she interrupts Elvis's weekend getaway with Susan from the band to present them this car and then like sell him this cockamamie story. Like, I don't understand any part of this plan. It's like, wait, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it just sounds like something somebody thought up on cocaine. Like, here's what we're going to do. And then everyone else is also on cocaine. So they all agree to it. And I'm going to say she kind of drove like she was on cocaine.
Yeah.
She is tearing up that driveway and just like slamming on the brakes. Like, hello, everybody. And then gets out. And it's literally like, hey, here's this great thing. This person gave you this car. And we have to leave immediately.
Right.
I know there's dinner plans. There's this and that. Go get your stuff. We're leaving. And what's weird is she's showing up at Susan's house and they had just fired her.
Right.
From the show, which she took pretty well.
She did.
I'm going to say. She did take it pretty well. Because she's got a fallback, which is to just take care of horses and stuff.
Yeah, just hang out on the farm, I guess. That whole sequence was startling to me because, outside of Love Me Tender, it's very rare to see Elvis in a movie where he's like actually outside.
Yeah, that's true.
With like actual scenery and real houses and roads, and it's like an actual farm. It's like none of it is a set. None of it is a studio backdrop or like a soundstage or anything. It's disconcerting. Like, oh, wow, look. His hair is moving because there's wind blowing because he's actually outside.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's moving because they haven't like lacquered it down in whatever dippity-do or whatever the hell they used on him. Aquanet or something, maybe a combination of both. But it's a beautiful, like I kind of want to go to that farm,
Yeah.
It's just like the rolling hills, especially when they come around the top and you can kind of see it. Like they're in it's not a jalopy, it's a hot rod, but it's him and Susan when they first get there. They're on this little country road and you look down and you see it. It's like, man, that's a nice piece of land. I would want to live there. Sure. And then Elvis can't take his car with him. So he has to like give the car to Susan. Like, what is she? I just can't see her out driving around in that thing.
Yeah. And this will come up later on in the movie where, oh man, and Glinda organizes this TV appearance for Deke Rivers. Like we were talking earlier, I watched the movie twice, give or take, like watch snippets here and there, taking notes. So, like, the whole crux of the end of the film is that this town doesn't want Elvis to perform because of his smoldering sensuality is too much. And also his brooding, violent nature, because he, like, gets into some, fisticuffs. Mm-hmm. So, Glinda convinces the local politicians to just put them on TV. It's like,
Right.
look, let's do this show about how great Deke Rivers is. And the show is people just going up in front of a camera and talking about how great Deke Rivers is. And this is supposed to be the prelude to like a live concert performance.
Yeah, and one of them is a girl who snuck in to like steal a kiss from him. Who what's her name? Jana Lund, I think is her name.
I don't have it written down.
But that's Elvis's first on-screen kiss.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And then I thought back, I'm like, well, wasn't he married in Love Me Tender? Did they not kiss at all in that? That seems odd. But I guess they didn't. I don't remember that happening. It's odd that we didn't pick up on that.
It's not
it's a
one
very
of them,
chaste marriage.
Yeah, it's not one of them kissing type marriages.
Yeah, it's a go to work type marriages.
Right. Exactly.
Go collect the eggs.
And it gets like really wild when it's revealed that Deke Rivers is not actually there and they're just stalling for time. Mm-hmm. And one wonders, I wasn't around in the 50s or watching TV back then, but were TV schedules like so wide open that you could just be like, I don't care what you have on for Saturday night. Take it off because we're going to show like people talking about Deke Rivers and maybe he'll perform afterwards.
Right. Yeah, you would have that guy locked down because you would think you'd have some sort of like Ed Sullivan type show on. Mm-hmm. That's
right.
And you know who's going to be on that. But some like regional star. He's not a superstar at this point.
No, not at
Deke
all.
Rivers
No.
isn't. He's just a regional guy in Texas. And they're like, stop everything nationwide because some older local ladies take umbrage with him and don't want him to play. So therefore, your Friday night regularly scheduled program has been canceled, and we think he's in the building, but none of us really bothered to check. Mm-hmm. But boy, we hope that Lizbeth Scott can go find him out on some country road and get him back in time.
Right.
You know,
what that sequence is really missing is like a shot of like somebody in their home watching TV, and this show is on. And they try turning the channels, and it's on like every channel, and they like smack the side of the TV, like, huh?
Yeah, right.
They like pick up a booze bottle and look at it and like throw it in the garbage, like, huh? Like one
That's
of those
exactly
things.
what it needs.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah, or like somebody saying like Deke Rivers isn't even in the building, and then like some like teenage kid just like turning off a television set, like storming out.
Right.
Yeah. Storming out of the house.
I'll never trust anything I see on TV again.
Yeah. I hate you. And just like running in and like slamming a door.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
But something I forgot about Loving You is how many Elvis classics really make their debut in this movie. Stuff that's like definitely part of the Elvis canon. Like the title track. Also, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, which is a single that was released prior to the film coming out and not associated with the film. They're just like, oh, here's a current hit single by Elvis. Let's put it in there. Also, Mean Woman Blues during like the big fight scene in the diner or restaurant or whatnot, which we definitely need to talk about in depth. But something that I didn't know, I always associated that song with Roy Orbison, and I assumed that was like one of his, but no, the actual first recorded version is Elvis's.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, Roy Orbison covered that song. I did not know that.
Yeah, I guess I always did too. I guess it didn't really dawn on me that it wasn't. So, what do you think of this song, the Got a Lot of Living to Do? Got a Lot of Living to Do.
Yeah, it's great.
And the Lonesome Cowboy song. So there's some good ones in there. The performance of that one is pretty good, how they've got him on the Lonesome Cowboy and, he's just in the pool of light. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree. I mean, those don't really come up too much later in his career. But yeah, definitely Teddy Bear and Loving You, for sure, and Mean Woman Blues. So yeah, to get 3 of them out at that time in one movie, it's pretty good. Like if you just bought the album and you got just those 3 songs, that's a good album. Like anything else, you can just put up with whatever else.
Much higher batting average than your average Elvis album.
I'm expecting like 2 songs if I buy an album that are like, that's what I want. Like, oh, these are great. Usually there's a lot of filler, so that's pretty good to get 1 extra in there. So I think one of the big scenes, there's a couple of big scenes in here that are kind of famous. One of them being the teddy bear performance. But I think one that it's kind of come up because it was reimagined in Heartbreak Hotel, which is the fight scene in the diner. So, yeah, I think we should kind of talk about it. It's where this character, Wayne, is with his girlfriend, and he wants Deke to sing a song for his girlfriend, and kind of won't take no for an answer. He's pretty rude about it.
Right.
But what's your take on all that, Wade?
The thing is, it's this scene that made me feel like I've seen this movie a lot more times than I actually had. And rewatching it recently, there's like tons of things I did not remember at all. But like every line of dialogue in the fight scene, it's like I know it like the back of my hand. And I figured out that the reason this is that every time you see a documentary about Elvis or like go on a Graceland tour, you're going to see the scene in its entirety. It's the slimy guy played by Kenneth Becker goes up, calls him sideburns, like that sort of thing, trying to get under his skin. And then it leads to the performance of Mean Women Blues, that old trope where you put like a dime in the jukebox and I guess it's just a song with all the vocals removed. So you can just like...
Yeah, I was going to bring up like how many instrumentals of popular songs do you think? Because what's weird is when they're in there, it has another one of the tunes that's in the movie. Also, it's just instrumental that's playing.
Right.
So I guess it's mostly just instrumental. So he's like, oh, here's my song. This song that nobody's heard, my unreleased track.
Right.
And it just happens to be on here as an instrumental, and I'll go ahead and sing it for everybody.
Well, you know what this is? This scene invented karaoke.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it did.
And then, of course, there's a lot of tension in the scene, and I was just like, hold up. I don't want to cause any trouble. Let me put some money in the jukebox, and I'll sing a song for this young lady. And just bringing all kinds of like that nervous 1950s Elvis energy to the performance. It's really good. I mean, like young Elvis, I mean, the guy can like really like flop around like nobody's business. And then he's still full of piss and vinegar after the performance and then just kind of angry. He could have de-escalated. It's like, all right, wise guy who like tried to get me to sing. There, I did it. And like the entire room cheered for me. But no, he's got to take it a step further.
Yeah.
He's like, march your ass out of this restaurant right now and put new seat covers on my car, you son of a bitch.
Right.
Like I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, but what's weird there is that the whole thing for him doing the song is to not cause any trouble. And at the end, it's like he can't help himself but to cause trouble. And then just tears into this guy. And kind of, takes a few on the chin himself.
He does.
But ultimately, and then do you know, because the guy, Wayne or Kenneth Becker, do you think it's salt or sugar that he throws in his face?
I was wondering the same thing. Like, definitely kind of like a sneaky, dirty, underhanded move in the middle of the fight. I think it was salt. That's what I read it as.
I want to say it's sugar, because if it was salt, I think fight's over. Like, if you got salt in your eyes, you'd just be like, I'm done. Like, that's it. I tap out. Like, sugar, I think you can probably handle. Or Elvis just has, like, eyes that just expel salt immediately. It's like, doesn't bother me. The piercing blue just like ejects salt from it.
Well,
I don't know.
It's from all the crying he does all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Emotional. That's probably it. There's already enough salt. So
right, that's a good question. And wish that I'd went back and like looked to see for sure if it was like a salt shaker or like one of those big weird sugar caddies that diners had.
Yeah, maybe they don't want you to know. It's the way Homer thing. It's like, man, we're really gonna give him a noodle scratcher on this one.
Right.
Yet either or is not good. But I think if somebody is going to do that, I would prefer sugar to salt.
And this also establishes, did Elvis get in a fist fight in Let Me Tender? I don't remember. They were shooting. I don't know if he punched anyone.
I don't think he did.
But holy crap, in this movie, he's like trying to take this guy's head off. Just like swinging for the fences. It's an alarmingly violent fight scene.
Especially that end part where the Kenneth Becker lands on the jukebox and then Elvis kicks his leg out from under him.
Right.
It's like just to add insult to injury. And the thing is, that guy was in 3 other Elvis movies.
Yeah, playing a similar role.
Yeah, similar kind of thing. I don't know if he gets beat up on all 3 of them. but I'm sure there is probably some sort of altercation. But he's in GI Blues, Girls Cubed, and Roustabout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we're going to get to all these movies. I don't know if we've really officially announced this yet. At the beginning of the season, we talked about Love Me Tender. Tonight, we're talking about Loving You. We have decided to, at our own pace, like we do everything, watch all of Elvis's movies chronologically.
Well, yeah,
Or wait.
unless, of course, we mess with that. Because, technically, we started off, we have done Viva Las Vegas.
And Girl Happy.
And Girl Happy. But now we're retroactively, I think, going to try and do that. Of course, if we don't adhere to that because we forgot for some reason, then don't hold it as don't hold it against us.
But
I might just be itching to do clam bake.
Sure.
Just kidding. But no, I think we should try. Yeah, let's try to do it that way.
And really, I'd like to say that there was like a master plan here, but it was like sheer laziness because you suggested we do Blue Hawaii, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I looked for it like on all my streaming services, and I would have had to pay money to watch Blue Hawaii. It wasn't on any of them. And I'm like, well, the hell with that. It's like, look, Loving You is on YouTube in its entirety. Let's do that. And then...
well, here's the thing. Eventually, not too far from now, you're going to eventually have to pay for it. So,
I know.
Really,
I just didn't...
you're just putting off the inevitable now.
Yeah, I just didn't want to do it this week. I just didn't feel like it.
I gotcha. Yeah.
It just, oh my God, what a scam streaming services are. What we were sold when everybody was like getting rid of hard copies. They're like, don't own copies of anything. Get rid of all that shit. Watch whatever you want to watch whenever. And it's like, no, that's not the way it worked out at all. I mean, things are like constantly like shifting between companies and getting taken off with no notice. And it's the awful dystopia we're living in where streaming services are a lie.
Right. And I think we're on a streaming service or two. So
yeah, we are.
So... all I gotta say is just keep paying that monthly $5 or whatever for it.
I guess. So this fight scene mirrored almost shot for shot in Heartbreak Hotel, which we covered in season 1. And also a lot of the stuff that happens in this scene happens also in Top Secret.
Right. Which I know it's definitely a favorite for me. I'm a fan, not necessarily of that scene, but there's a couple of scenes in there with Nigel. Yeah.
Which I always feel like Top Secret's been always kind of like a secret handshake movie for me with you, like...
sure. Yeah.
Just like, saying to you offhand, like, what's your bloody hurry?
Yep, for sure. Oh my God.
Why are you always in such a bloody rush?
Man, that gets me every time.
Oh, my God. I love it.
I think the most memorable scene other than that is probably just him singing Teddy Bear. Like, that is one of those things, you've seen it so many times because it also is in documentaries, anything about him, like that outfit with the red and white Western wear and the J200. You've just seen it over and over again, even if you haven't seen the movie. So it's a really standard image of him, of Elvis.
Back on Top Secret, Val Kilmer's name in that movie was Nick Rivers.
Nick Rivers, yep.
But when he was in Germany, the women referred to him as Neek, which, rhymes with Deke. I don't know.
Right.
Well, it was just something that struck me. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's,
I hadn't even thought about that. That's good. Good work. Good work, Wade. Yeah. You're really getting to the bottom of this.
Apropos of nothing. Yeah.
You should have been watching Loving You, though. And here you are watching Top Secret the whole time. Now
that's true. That's true.
Yep.
Stay tuned for more of the half-wit and wisdom of Wade Durbin.
Yeah, a couple other things, though. The Rough Ridin' Ramblers features his actual band.
Oh, right. Scotty Moore and Bill Black.
And Pete Best. No, I'm kidding. DJ Fontana.
He's in there, too. Okay, cool.
Yep, yeah, all three of them are in there. Well, man, would you believe that the drummer is DJ Fontana?
Oh, and also the Jordanaires.
Jordanaires make an appearance towards the end.
Called out by name in that film.
Well, I guess what else are you going to call them?
Right.
Everybody knows the Jordanaires.
Sure.
Especially that day and age. So, Wade, I'm going to ask you this. What didn't work for you in the movie? Obviously, the plot is pretty paper thin. But maybe that aside, we can touch on that a little bit. But what else didn't work for you in the movie?
Well, there's a plot point that even watching this movie twice, I never sat down and like watched all hour and 40 minutes of it at once. It was like, I'm a busy parent. I can watch, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So there's a lot of things that didn't add up for me, which probably somebody who knows this movie well would be able to like poke holes in. But the whole thing where Glinda signs Deke to a contract where she gets 50% of his earnings, which is ironically the exact same deal that Elvis signed with the Colonel, which is like really lacks precedent in like show business, that a manager would get like half the money. And I looked in the credits, and as with every Elvis movie ever made, technical advisor was Colonel Tom Parker. So do you think that plot point is in the movie because the Colonel wants Elvis to feel like that's a very normal thing for business managers to ask for?
Without a doubt.
Without
a doubt. Yeah. I almost wrote that in as a would you believe that he did that, because I didn't, but because it's almost too on the nose. It's like,
right.
Well, obviously he would have done that, and it's shocking because when you hear it, it's like, who pays half to the manager? You would never sign that contract. I mean, Elvis obviously did.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
And went really far, to be sure. So I really do think maybe even young Elvis would say to the Colonel, like, I don't know, man, 50%, is this right? And Colonel Tom Parker, like, remember the movie you did, Loving You, with the pretty lady and her contract, Yeah, I remember that pretty lady.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Yeah, see, that's how it happens. This is normal. This is normal stuff. One of the other things is just, this all hinges on the Glenda character, Liz Scott, calls and gets Deke fired from his job so that he'll go on the road with him. Mm-hmm. And I would think maybe he's not a very good employee if that's how easily it was to get him fired. Like, usually it's like a 3 strikes you're out kind of thing. Or somebody just had to have been really angry with him on the phone. I don't know. It seems kind of hard to believe. I mean, obviously an Elvis movie, so it's like, this thing leads to this thing. Like, he has to lose his job, so he has to take this job. But I would almost want to see him want to go do it. Well, I'm going to quit my job and do it. Like, hey, I'm going to take a chance on me for once or something. But whatever. It gets from point A to point B, scene 1 to scene 2 or whatever, or into the second act or whatever of the movie. So it works. But speaking of that, they keep talking about how far they're driving in that car. Like, hey, it's only 200 miles in a hot rod. Man, I don't know. I mean, I've been in a car similar to that, and just driving around town, it's exhausting. Like, I can't imagine 200 miles on like 2-lane blacktops. Because I don't think there was much interstate going on through there, but just how incredibly exhausted you would be and like covered in bugs and dirt by the time you arrived at your next destination. I guess that's another thing that kind of got me with that movie.
Yeah, a bit of trivia about that car. It's a heavily modified Ford Roadster. So Elvis became like enamored of the car and wanted to buy it. And the guy who made the car wouldn't sell it to him. And that car remained in that guy's possession up until the day he died. It's a one owner.
Yeah, it seemed like the sort of thing Elvis would try to buy. Because I'm sure, like, at that age, at 22, driving around that car on set, it's early in his career, I'm sure it's just like, well, I just made, $50,000 or whatever. I can buy this thing for like $1,000.
The other car in the movie, the convertible that the fake oil baron widow buys for Deke Rivers, 1957 Chrysler Imperial.
That's a nice looking car.
Very slick.
I would drive either one of those cars, but not 200 miles and not with the top down.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm a hot rod guy, but yeah.
I think I would prefer the Chrysler at this age. But yeah, maybe when I was younger, I would have driven the hot rod.
I do think it's notable that this movie marks the first appearance of Elvis with black hair.
He thought it would look good. He was imitating Tony Curtis. That's the idea. He saw Tony Curtis and he knew he was going to do a color film. And it was January 14th of 1957. He went and got his hair dyed. And with the exception of being in the Army, and I think there was a little bit like the early 60s, There was one or two times where I think he was some other color briefly. Other than that, he's black hair till the day he died.
And something about this movie that was kind of surprising to me, because that copy on YouTube is pretty high def, how unnatural his hair looks in this movie. You know, it's like, it doesn't look like a wig or anything, but it does look like somebody who just got their hair dyed like 10 minutes before they appeared on screen.
Yeah, it's pretty dark hair, for sure.
It is. And since his coloring is so pale, it's a very odd look. It's like there's something like very unusual looking about Elvis in this movie. And
I never really thought about it before, but do you think he had to dye his eyebrows as well then? Because I don't know if he had dark eyebrows.
Probably,
Yeah. And I'm assuming if he ever grew a beard, he would have to color that. Like when he was doing like Charo or whatever.
Right,
he probably
right.
would have had to darken that a little bit just to match. Things I never really thought about until right now. I was like, oh man, I bet he had to do that. But yeah, he is incredibly pale.
Right.
In this movie. Later in his career, he definitely spends a lot of time on a tanning bed.
Right. Which, for whatever reason, doesn't look as weird to me. Like the very dark hair and the kind of bronze skin tone.
Sure.
Then he looks in this movie he just looks like a young dude with very obviously dyed hair. Which, I don't know, probably had to make older people very upset and confused at the time.
Yep, I agree. Well, yeah, I think you and I would agree. I wouldn't say this is the best Elvis movie, but it's definitely worth a watch. And it has some scenes that are very memorable that you've seen a bunch of times. And it's kind of nice to see them in context of the actual movie they're from, because they work pretty well. But yeah, and I don't know if we'd mentioned it, but Wendell Corey, who plays Walter Tex Warner, I think does a great job too, because he gets him and Elvis and Lizbeth Scott are all on the card together and the credits together. And I think the three of them, they seem like they have a real natural chemistry to me. So that kind of worked in the movie. So that helps. That always helps. But I think that kind of wraps up the movie a little bit. I think we got a couple of things. Like, I know when we have a movie, especially one that's set back in the 50s and stuff, I know you like to do a little segment. Wade, or do you have a Wade back machine for us today?
Boy, do I. I've got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about tonight. All right. Loving You came out July 9th, 1957. Nice summer release, kind of like hot and sticky out. You want to hide away in a darkened, air-conditioned movie theater. Loving You started a releasing pattern which came to be known as the Presley pattern, which was they stayed out of the downtown big movie theaters and booked Elvis movies almost exclusively in like smaller one-screen neighborhood theaters. And they would just strike a ton more prints, and instead of, like playing downtown. And a lot of this was like, we're keeping the shoeless hillbillies out of the nice theaters downtown, was like basically the idea. And this would be like later echoed when like drive-ins became a huge deal, which I guess they were by the mid-50s as well.
Sure.
But all throughout the 60s, which was in a lot of ways the heyday of the drive-in, Elvis movies almost exclusively played outdoors. Other movies in July 57, it would have gone up against a movie called Apache Warrior, which I don't know anything about, never heard of it. Also, The Pride and the Passion was in theaters at the time. Pride and the Passion starring Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra and Sophia Loren. According to IMDb, it's set during the Napoleonic Wars. A British captain is sent to Spain to help prevent the French from stealing a powerful cannon.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go, that's a good enough reason.
Yeah, that sounds good. Also in theaters at the time was An Affair to Remember, which starred, what the hell, Cary Grant again. And that's the one where a couple agrees to meet 6 months from whenever at the Empire State Building. We talked about Tom Hanks during the Elvis the Movie episode, but yeah, didn't he make like a remake of this?
No, I think it's just mentioned in, is it Sleepless in Seattle, I think was the movie? Where they like reference it.
Like that. Right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but what happens is, spoiler alert, the woman that he's supposed to meet doesn't meet him because she's hit by a car. And
Oh,
then,
damn.
so he thinks that she doesn't care for him, and then finds out later he goes to see her, like, however much later, and she's on a couch with, like, a blanket over her legs and can't stand up. And then he realizes, like, oh, there was a reason you could show up. Anyway, it's a love story. Yeah, that Cary Grant, man, he was in some movies back in the day.
Yeah, he was getting around. So it's like either see Cary Grant, or Elvis.
Yeah, there you go.
That was your choices. The charts of July 1957. Well, it starts a little bit before this. All Shook Up was a smash #1 single from Elvis that was at the top of the charts from April until June of 1957, which was knocked out of the #1 spot by, that's right, Pat Boone with the song Love Letters in the Sand, which was the #1 song in the country until Loving You came out. And then Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear and Loving You became enormous smash hits, knocking Pat Boone off the charts. And really, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Pat
Yeah,
Boone.
good old
Jesus
Pat Boone.
Christ.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. What a turd.
Yeah, he was fine. He was of his time, you know.
Yeah, I don't have any nice things to say about Pat Boone, so we'll move on. In the news, in July 1957, on July 6th, John Lennon meets Paul McCartney for the first time when Paul McCartney goes to see a Quarrymen show in Liverpool. So, do you think a couple days later, John Lennon and Paul McCartney went to go see Loving You together?
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
There are a couple of, what do they call them, teddy boys?
Sure.
With, like, the greasy hair and all, the pomade and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm sure they would have been
leather
big fans.
jackets, white t-shirts.
Definitely would have been fans of Elvis. I mean, we know that they were fans of him and Little Richard and all that stuff. So, yeah, definitely.
Do you think they saw it in a movie theater that allowed smoking?
I don't know if it allowed it, but I'm sure it happened.
Right. Yeah. Just a couple of punk kids smoking cigarettes. Also, July 1957, kind of a landmark discovery from Surgeon General Leroy Burney, who's the first person to connect smoking cigarettes to lung cancer.
You'd think it wouldn't have taken that long to figure that out.
Well, the party was over at that point.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah, it definitely was.
Also this month, Jerry Lee Lewis makes his TV debut on The Steve Allen Show.
The Killer.
Back when the Dream was still alive. Didn't last for very long for The Killer, you know.
No, it did not. Not.
And then also that month, The Tonight Show with Jack Parr made its debut.
So was he the second Tonight Show host? That would have it was Steve Allen, right? Like Steve Allen did it before him, right? And then it's him.
Yes, you're correct.
And
Steve
then
Allen,
Johnny Carson.
then Jack Parr, then Johnny Carson, leading to the dystopian future we face today with none other than Jimmy Fallon in the.
Oh boy, yeah. It's a far
seat.
cry from the Jack Parr years.
Oh, good Lord. Man, you're going to get my blood up talking about Pat Boone and Jimmy Fallon in the same episode. I'm going to start punching walls, you know.
It'd be like that teenage girl watching at home the telecast of Deke Rivers finding out he's not going to be there. Be angrier than that.
Right.
Which is pretty rough. That's pretty angry. That's some ire. Your ire is up.
It's making me mad enough to shoot a TV screen.
As if Robert Goulet was appearing on it.
Right. And that's all I have.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah, that's the Wade back machine for
shutting it down.
For tonight's episode.
No, that's pretty cool. No, that's some cool stuff, man. All the Cary Grant stuff, I guess you kind of forget just how prominent he was at that time still. Well, that brings us to the next segment, which is your favorite segment.
God damn it.
Which is Would You Believe? So
All right.
we're going to quiz you on a couple of facts or maybe falsified things that happened around this time with Elvis. So let's start with, would you believe that Elvis rewatched Loving You every year on Mother's Day? And this is based on the fact that his parents were both in the movie. So they're in that final scene where he comes back and he's playing. And you can see Gladys like clapping along.
And Vernon is sitting next to her.
Exactly.
And if I'm not mistaken, Gladys is clapping on the ones and the threes.
Yeah, which is just the worst. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody should do that.
I'm going to say that's false because I believe that Elvis never watched Loving You again after his mother died.
Yeah, that's right. You got it.
Yeah,
You nailed it.
right.
And Vernon and Gladys, and then their friends Carl and Willie Nichols took the train out to Hollywood. And Carl Nichols is the person that installed the pool at their house on Audubon Drive. So,
okay.
There you go. At any rate, though, yeah, Elvis never rewatched that movie after Gladys passed away. So, all right, good on you. So, here's a would you believe.
Okay.
So, Hal Wallace, you're familiar with Hal Wallace?
Sure.
He gave the role of Glenda Markle to Lizbeth Scott in an attempt to rekindle his romantic relationship with her. Would you believe?
Yeah, I'm going to choose to believe that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wild.
She was his mistress. He was married. She was his mistress for years, like a protege of his. And they worked on several movies. And they kind of drifted apart. And yeah, she hadn't been on anything for a little bit. And he was trying to get her in a starring role. And he's like, this might be one of the last times. Because, she was in her 30s at this point. He's like, this might be one of the last times he could get her in a starring role. So yeah, I think it did not work. I don't think it happened.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
Yeah. So hey, good for you. 2 for 2 so far.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
So would you believe that during the shooting of Loving You, Lizbeth Scott was really infatuated with Elvis? And then during a kissing scene, she bit him on the cheek so hard that it left a mark on him, and they had to reshoot the scene from the opposite side.
I don't believe that because she's a grown-ass woman and Elvis was like a boy.
No, that was true. That's true.
Whoa.
And she called it a little love nibble. Yeah. And yeah, I guess she was a pretty bawdy lady. She was kind of a woman about town. I don't know. I think Elvis, I don't know if he would have been scared of her or not, but who knows if that would have been one of the, 3 that he didn't sleep with, or just 2?
Well, the ones that I know he didn't sleep with was Shelley Fabre. And when we say sleep, we mean pork.
Right.
Did he pork his love interest in this movie, Dolores Hart?
That I don't know. But would you believe that Dolores Hart, after this, she was in a couple more movies, then she became a nun?
I would believe that.
Yeah, that's true. I that wasn't even one of them, but it's just something I read up on her.
The thing is, she's still with us.
Yes, she is. She's still alive. So, Dolores, if you're listening to this, we apologize for using the word pork. To refer
That nun
to
life.
Intercourse. Yes.
Built to last.
Definitely. Would you believe that Elvis had a pet cat named Wendell in honor of Tex, or Wendell Corey?
I do not believe that. I've never heard a story about Elvis having a cat.
That's true. He did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, those two guys got on like a house on fire. I read a couple of things about that. And yeah, apparently they really liked each other, and Elvis just really liked him. And that leads me to my next one, which is, would you believe that Wendell Corey taught Elvis this old actor's gag of eating onions before a kissing scene? So Elvis ate an onion sandwich before his kissing scene in the graveyard with Lizbeth Scott. Would you believe?
I do not believe that.
Yeah, I made that up. That didn't happen. There you go. Yeah.
Onion sandwich? What in the...
Yeah. No, but that is like an actor's thing that they'll eat garlic and stuff before they do kissing scenes just to mess with each other.
Yeah.
All right. So would you believe that Yvonne Lime, so she plays a character named Sally. She's one of the people that's on stage saying how nice Elvis is. They dated briefly kind of after this movie. And she went to go visit Elvis in Memphis. And it's rumored that she's actually the first person that Elvis slept with at Graceland.
I'm going to go ahead and believe that.
No, that's false. But here's the thing. It's a maybe, it could be, but I made that rumor up, so it's probably not. But Elvis had just bought Graceland, and bought Graceland, I think, right around the time they were filming this movie. So it would have been just right after they wrapped, or during, I think it might have been on a break that he went back and saw Graceland for the first time, because that's what Vernon and Gladys did. After they left, they went home and they're like, we got to get out of this place, because they were just so tired of people being all over their front lawn. So they found that, but they were renovating it, and Elvis took her there and gave her a tour, probably by themselves. So
Yeah.
There you go. And then finally, this is the final Would You Believe?
Okay.
And I forgot how many you've gotten right or wrong, but you've done pretty well. So this is pretty good.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you.
So Yvonne Lime And then Teddy, so this would have been the guy that he worked with as a delivery driver for the liquor store. There's a guy, is an actor named Skip Young. And they were on Father Knows Best together. And they shared an on-screen kiss. And Elvis found out about this and did not care for this at all. And then was just really cold to Skip Young on set. Would you believe?
I would believe that.
No, that's false. I made that up.
God damn it.
Yeah, but it's pretty believable. Here's the thing. They were both on that show. But I think Skip Young just appeared on it like one time. So I don't know if they were even love interests. And that wraps up Would You Believe? And like I said, I think you did pretty well. Like I said, I lost count. I'll listen back at some point.
Yeah.
And maybe...
Yeah, I was pretty strong out of the gate, but, kind of fell apart.
Yeah, I think you got... Well, I don't know. I'm going to go back and look at it now. But, I think you did over 50%. I think we had 6 or 7 of them. So I think you got like 4 and 3, maybe 5 and 2. I don't know. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I feel good about it. I don't have any regrets.
That's good. You shouldn't have any regrets.
Right.
It's just a silly little segment, and now it's over.
Sure.
Until next time with Would You Believe? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this one up?
Just the fact that we're dedicating ourselves to going back and watching the Elvis films chronologically. At least, we kind of semi-agreed to that. I'm really looking forward to it, to like doing deep dives on these films and just like really sitting down and paying attention to them, maybe a little bit more than I did with this one. But hey, man, I'm a parent of 2 young kids. I got a lot of shit going on.
You can only do what you can do, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But if we keep on the schedule, and I was proposing we would do like a couple of film reviews per season. This isn't going to become the Elvis film review podcast by any means, but Jailhouse Rock is next. Looking forward to that. King Creole, I always enjoy an opportunity to watch that one. So we got a lot of good stuff ahead of us. I really do feel that by the time we get around to like Viva Las Vegas and Girl Happy Again, we should like review them.
Oh, yeah. In order and all that stuff. Yeah.
It just will have like new insights, and we'll be like much older than we were the first time we did them.
Yeah, we'll be like retirement age by the time we get to those.
Yeah. Which, hey, I'm not
We'll be closer. We'll both be living closer to each other in Florida at that point.
Right,
yeah.
Of course.
Sheltering from a hurricane, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed. Or, some sort of meteorological apocalypse that befalls us at that point. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Baseball Paul's. Do you like cold beer served in a piping hot mug? Baseball Paul's is the place for you. Half price, happy hour, gravy balls, and sour sticks available every day between 4 and 4:15. Bring the whole family, but leave the kids in the car. That's Baseball Paul's, right off the highway. Highway 270. I don't know.
It's right off it, though.
So yeah, right off of it.
Yeah, so just if you're driving, just get off, and then it's right off there.
Well, it's certainly not on the highway,
That would make no sense.
Right.
It'd be one of those like those Oasis things, if you've been there, they're like over the highway.
Right.
Man, that would be great if Baseball Paul's moved over the highway. I'd be more interested in going there.
Oh, man.
Than paying their sky-high prices.
Get an order of biscuit fingers with gravy sauce.
Ooh, man, sounds good. It's like a poutine sounding kind of thing. I'm into it.
Indeed.
One thing I think that I didn't bring up that was in my notes, and then we can kind of cut it, but the musical director for Loving You was Walter Scharf.
Okay.
And he also worked on King Creole, and then he also did the documentary, the 1981 documentary, This Is Elvis. He was the musical director for that. So, pretty interesting. I thought that was kind of cool. So I think that's about it. I think that wraps it up. I think what we want to do is really give a shout out to our friends over at the Elvis Book Club with Pat and Brad. Or is it Brad and Pat or Pat and Brad? I think it's Pat and Brad.
I think, that sounds better, Pat and Brad.
So their show is great. I've listened to it a few times myself. I don't know about you, but they're doing great work over there. So definitely check out their show if you haven't already. If you do want to get in touch with us, feel free to shoot us an email at suspiciousminds77@gmail.com. If emails aren't your thing, if you want to text or call and leave us a message, you can certainly do that at our hotline. I guess it's our hotline at 773-389-4276. And where can they find us on the internet there, Wade?
Well, if you're impossibly old like us, you can find us on Facebook at Suspicious Minds Podcast with Wade and Burl. There's not a whole hell of a lot going on over there. Like once again, I keep promising I'm going to do better with it, and I just don't. I don't know what you're supposed to do with Facebook, but the fun place to go, social media wise, where all the cool kids hang out, is at Suspicious Minds Podcast on Instagram. All kinds of new content almost every day. I mean, I've been trying to set a schedule for myself to keep that updated. Lots of fun pictures, a little bit of history lessons, some stories. I respond to comments as they come in, so keep them coming in. Check that out. And I think that's all I got.
All right.
What the hell? Do we have a TikTok? Should we have a TikTok?
I don't think so. I don't think we should have a TikTok. At this point, I think we missed the boat on that. We'll do the next thing, the next big craze.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this one. We'll close up shop here. And as always, I have been Burl.
And I am Wade.
And we will see you next time.
Have a good time all the time.
Thank you. Good night.